What's going on, everybody? This is the Total Takedown for UFC Vegas 32. We are going to talk overs, unders, 2.5, 1.5. How deep is this fight going to go? You know the drill. Smash the like button. Let's get straight on into it. The first fight of the night, we are kicking off with Diana Belbita taking on Hannah Goldy. We've got a total here set at 2.5 to begin this. First off, recall we are in the UFC Apex. We are in the small cage. So we've got women's fights over 2.5 minus 310, under 2.5 is plus 225. And you got to feel like this one's probably going over. Hannah Goldy is an absolute tank of a woman, insanely durable. Diana Belbita, we've seen her get submitted. That's been her Achilles heel. However, Diana Belbita, not much of a grappler, not much of a takedown specialist. She's a fighter that likes to stay on the outside, stick and move, scoot her way around. Now, both these women are dropping a weight class for this fight, which is incredibly interesting to me. So we may end up seeing a finish if one of them is far more at home than the other. If one of them has a tough weight cut, if one of them struggles, then there's a potential one of them will have a unique advantage and be able to pop a finish where we really don't see it coming. But more often than not, I think this one hits the judges' scorecards unless I see something on the Friday weigh-in. Not something I'm planning on touching from a perspective, but I'll go ahead and say over 2.5 is the pick. Women's flyweight fight up next. Sijara Eubanks taking on Elise Reed, UFC newcomer here. Total set at 2.5 once again. The over 2.5 is minus 160. The under 2.5 is plus 140. And this is a spot where I'm much more interested in that under. It's lined a whole lot more closely because the UFC odds makers, they know what they're doing here. Sijara Eubanks, wicked ground and pound. She's huge for the division. She probably won't even make weight. She's a BJJ black belt. Elise Reed is a finisher. She's 4-0, and she is hell on wheels. She comes out hard, keeps her foot on the gas. So she's either going to break herself against Sijara Eubanks, or there's a potential that the weight cut is too much for Sarge to handle, and she could end up getting stopped by Reed a little bit later in the fight if she happens to slow down. So the under 2.5 is a spot that I actually would be relatively interested in here on this fight, just because I think Sarge has a decent chance of ending this thing early, given the difference in the experience gap here. Bantamweight fight up next. Julio Arce taking on Andre Ewell. Total set at 2.5. Once again, they're expecting an over here. Minus 235 to the over, plus 195 to the under. And I think that this thing is custom made for the over. The way that Andre Ewell fights, he sticks and moves. He's got a reach advantage over pretty much everybody. Good footwork, stays on the outside. He's fast, he's athletic, and he has been working on sitting harder on his punches. He has been working on trying to get people out of there, but Arce is a slick striker himself. So I don't know that Andre Ewell is going to necessarily be able to finish Julio Arce. What we see is Andre Ewell slowing down. So I think if there's going to be a finish, it's probably going to be late, and it's probably going to be Arce. But since I only really see one guy actually contributing in a major way to this under cashing, there's no way I'm taking it. So I'm going to go ahead and say over 2.5. It probably gets to the judges' scorecards, or at least gets deep into the third round before Julio Arce manages to chip away at Andre Ewell. Bantamweight fight next. Adrian Martinez taking on Randy Costa, maybe the under the radar main event here for this one. Everybody's excited about this fight. Dr. Pepper and Reese is going at it. Total here set at 2.5. The over 2.5 is plus 145. The under 2.5 is minus 175. And man, that is a steep price for an under 2.5. It looks like they may have actually set the 1.5 more to pick 'em price tag. Over 1.5 is minus 130, and under 1.5 is plus 110. That's a little more like it. That's kind of more what I need to work with. The real wild card here is Randy Costa. The way this kid fights, he just blows through people, and you're not going to blow through Adrian Yanez. Yanez has proven that he's got a good, solid chin. He's well measured, well paced. He likes to take advantage of his opponent's openings, and because of that, Randy Costa is really going to have to mind his P's and Q's. This may be one of the hardest hitters and most dangerous fighters Costa has faced in his entire professional career. So logic would dictate that Costa slows it down just a tad, and if he does that to kind of, drop the amount of openings that Yanez can take advantage of, this thing's probably sailing way over. We're probably going to see a decision if these guys fight smart. However, if Randy Costa comes out the way he always does in round one, then one of these guys could be on the canvas in about 30 seconds. The problem is Costa's a wild card at this point. We don't know if he's made changes to his game plan. We don't know if he's made improvements. We don't know if he's going to come out hard or if he's going to be more technical. I'm going to say over 1.5 at minus 130, but I'm not at all confident in that, and this is definitely a fireball and popcorn fight. One you're going to just sit back, watch, and enjoy because it will absolutely be action. Middleweight fight up next. Nasruddin Imavov taking on Ian the Hurricane Heinisch. And what we've got is a total set at 2.5. Over 2.5 is minus 220. Under 2.5 is plus 180. And I have a hard time making an argument for that under here. Ian Hurricane is a hurricane. He is a type of fighter that just sticks on you constantly. And while he does wing some big bombs, he really doesn't finish anybody. The only people he's finished are people that are relatively chinny, not really known for their durability. Imavov is a very, very hard fighter to get out of the cage. So even if Ian is in the driver's seat, I expect Imavov to hang in there. And kind of the flip is absolutely true. Nobody finishes Ian Heinisch. He only loses by getting out physicaled by people. He only loses by getting out muscled by people. I really don't see him getting TKO'd or submitted by Imavov unless Imavov comes out with some wildly upgraded skills. So this is probably going to be a grinding match. The over 2.5 at minus 220 sounds fair to me, and that would definitely be the way I'd be looking. Punahele, Soriano, and Brandon Allen are capping off the preliminary portion of our evening, and this is going to be one heck of a fight. These guys are absolutely stylistically matched up to give us a banger of a fight. Brendan Allen probably going to have a grappling advantage, but we all knew Punahele Soriano has a wrestling background and a judo background, so he's not going to be a fish out of water. We just really haven't seen it in his MMA game because he hits so damn hard. If he comes out the way he did in his last fight and really just sells out for that knockout, I worry about his gas tank in round 2. I worry about his gas tank in round 3, and I think Brendan Allen could have some success with the grappling the deeper this fight goes. The problem is, Brendan Allen likes to strike, and even though his striking has come a long way, he's improving, he's getting better. If he gets hit by a guy like Soriano, he is going down. Brendan Allen does not move his head, so he will be there to be hit. The total here, it looks like they didn't give me a total, actually. I've got fight does or doesn't go to decision, which is interesting. So the fight does go to decision is plus 180. The fight doesn't go is about minus 260. We can infer based on that the total's probably going to be set at 1.5. They like to give you that pick'em price tag. They like to try and force you to make a mistake by going over or under when you more than likely shouldn't because the information is too close to call. And I really agree with that. The 1.5 is right about where I would expect this fight to land because if Soriano slows down, I think Allen will finish him on the ground. I think Allen will give him a rude awakening on the mat. But if Soriano comes out and does what he always does, if Allen isn't able to get this thing to the ground, then he probably goes lights out, and that under probably cashes. Soriano probably wins by knockout. So I do think the 1.5 is a fair spot to put this line. I would definitely have to lean with the fight doesn't go to decision. It's going to be very, very difficult to see these guys making it all 15 minutes the way that they fight, but you never know. The game plan is something that we don't control, we can only guess at. So if this is going to be a grappling heavy game plan from Brendan Allen, this thing could squeeze over, and I definitely don't want to be exposed to that. So I'm going to say, yikes. I mean, we really don't have a total for me to guess at. So I'll say over 1.5, I think will be my sneaky prediction here, but I'm definitely not betting it, and I'm not saying it with any confidence whatsoever. So don't come back next week and be like, Clint, you said over 1.5. No. This ain't the one. I'm not confident in that at all. We've got the main card kicking off here with Mickey Gall taking on Jordan Williams. Another very, very confusing fight. Total here set at 2.5. Over 2.5 is minus 105. Under 2.5 is minus 115. So they are thinking ever so slightly to the under, it looks like. And I kind of agree with that. Mickey Gall is a guy that's been improving every single time that we've seen him. He's not quite getting there with the opponents that he's had, but this is kind of a decent step down. Williams is a fighter that isn't really well-rounded himself, but Williams is a guy that runs on heart, and he is a guy that's got bombs in his hands. He's dropping a weight class, which is a little bit scary considering he's a diabetic. We'll have to see how that weight cut goes for him, and we got to see how he performs once he does do that. So this will be very, very intriguing on Saturday, because if Williams gets off on Mickey Gall, this thing is not going over. It's going to finish in a hurry. However, if Mickey Gall is able to engage in the grappling, I absolutely could see him wearing Williams down and then potentially popping up a submission later on, because what we've seen from Williams is an iron chin. He is incredibly hard to finish with strikes. I would see him almost turning his back and Mickey Gall taking a rear naked choke after he rocks him or something along those lines. So the under 2.5, the violence bet, is definitely the way that I'd be looking on that fight, because both guys can be finished, both guys have ways of finishing, and both guys have particularly potent offenses. So I like the under 2.5 there. Women's flyweight fight coming up next. Miranda Maverick taking on Macy. Barber. Total set at 2.5. Over is -210. Under is +175. And some money's coming in on the under. It looks like that's taking some money across the table here. And I definitely think this one's going to the judges' scorecards. I don't see a finish here. Mostly because both these women are built out of iron. It's next to impossible to finish either of them. And they're both incredibly well-muscled. They're both strong wrestlers. I just think they cancel each other out. This is going to be a very, very close, very evenly matched fight. And neither of them have like the jiu-jitsu in their back pocket to pull off a slick little ankle lock or something like that the other one doesn't see coming. They're going to be reliant on, rear naked chokes, guillotines. Maybe they roll for an armbar, but like with the way they wrestle, I don't know if they're going to want to even play that game. So this thing probably plays out on the feet. And again, even though they both hit hard, they're both so durable that I just think this is going to be a slugfest. I think these two are going to beat on each other, and it's going to be a bloody mess come the 15 minutes, and the judges won't have any idea what to do with it. So total pass for me, but I'm definitely thinking over. Featherweight fight here. Darren the Damage Elkins taking on Darrick Minner. Total set at 2.5. Over 2.5 is -125. The under 2.5 is +105. And I'm honestly a little shocked we're getting plus money on this under 2.5 here. Darrick Minner is a guy who's really first round or bust. Whenever he faces somebody that's durable, faces somebody that's got good cardio, faces someone that's got good wrestling, that's when he really struggles. And if he can't get that first round finish, he gasses out and he ends up getting finished himself. Now in his last fight against Charles Rosa accepts bottom position. He is not a good wrestler. So it was a perfect opportunity for Minner to basically stay safe, catch his breath, stay on top, and then extend that fight he won on the judges' scorecards, which is not something he usually does. Now, Darren Elkins is all of those things that I just mentioned Minner struggles with. Even though his name is The Damage and he bleeds all over the cage every time we see him, he just doesn't go down. He is very, very durable. He digs deep and he stays in fights. His wrestling is miles above Minner, and he's the bigger man here. I would expect him to have a strength advantage. Now, that doesn't always equal correct. Like, just because you're bigger doesn't mean you're stronger. But usually it does. So if Darren Elkins is all the things that Minner struggles with, then Minner probably will revert to his former self. He'll either get an early finish, or he's going to be helpless in round 2. And if he's helpless in round 2, Elkins is the kind of guy that will put you away. If you slow down, he dials it to 11 as soon as you start getting tired. This under 2.5 at plus money is screaming my name. I like that spot. Even though I've already got a bet here on the dog, Darren Elkins, the under 2.5 may be a real easy way to hedge that. And honestly, I think you end up cashing both. Bantamweight fight up next. Kyler Phillips taking on Raulian Paiva. Total here set at 2.5. Over is -230. Under is +190. And I kind of see what they're doing here. Both these guys are absolutely capable of finishing. Both of them are slick strikers. They can catch you from anywhere. Good kicks, good hands, heavy hands for both guys. Spinning kicks. Like, the world is their oyster when it comes to the striking game. So you're kind of thinking technical, right? You think both these guys are going to be able to play with each other a little bit on the feet. Good, solid experience edge for Raulian Paiva, even though he's got kind of a padded record. Both these guys are young. Both these guys are improving. They're just both so offensively gifted that +190 on the under 2.5 is extremely tempting. I'll be honest. So this is one of those ones where both them could cash that under, but neither of them really lose. So we don't have a lot to say that they're capable of being finished. They're both tough. They both stay in fights. They've been able to beat most everybody that they've been in the cage with. So I'm not really expecting either of them to get finished, but both of them can finish. So not one that I would say parlay the over 2.5 at -230, because their offense can absolutely get it done and cash that under 2.5. So I'm going to say the value here is on the under 2.5, but probably goes over. Definitely not one that I'm betting. Women's bantamweight fight for the co-main event here. 2.5 total. Over is -175. Under is +155. And I kind of like that under 2.5. I mean, these are finishing women. Like, of the women's bantamweights, not a lot of them are ones that you see capable of getting fights done or inside the distance. More often than not, it goes to decision. But Aspen Ladd is a powerhouse, physically speaking. She's got a good submission game, and her ground and pound is nasty. Macy Chiasson is huge for the division. She's very tall, very long, good striker, and when she connects, when she does what she's meant to do, she can hit damn hard, and she can catch people off guard because she can keep you at the end of her range and just pepper you with shots when you can't respond, and that just has a tendency of wearing away at people. Now, we have seen Aspen Ladd being down on the scorecards getting pumped up with her cornerman, giving her the right advice, and having her just turn the fight on its heel in a matter of seconds and finish somebody. She did that to Yana Kunitskaya, and it was terrifying when she did that. So both women are absolutely capable of finishing. It's another spot where, like Kyler Phillips, like Raulian Paiva, they've both only lost once. So you really don't expect them to get finished. But Aspen Ladd, her finished loss was by TKO. Now, that was to Germaine de Randamie, so you can't really knock her there. And there was, of course, talks about that being an early stoppage when it happened. Really, a lot of people were not happy about that loss. So I don't count that too much against her. And Macy Chiasson's one loss is by decision. So I'm not really expecting either of them to be vulnerable to a finish, but they're both so capable of finishing that I kind of like someone getting it done. There's a lot of questions about Aspen Ladd coming back. Is she going to be a new version of herself? Is she still going to be hampered by that injury? We don't know. Macy Chiasson, even though she's huge, even though we think there's a lot of upside to her, even though she's got that finishing ability, she's really struggled, and she's been beating only the bottom of the barrel recently. So is she ready for someone the caliber of Aspen Ladd, who we thought was starting to head towards a title shot the last time around? Very interesting fight. The under 2.5 is going to be the way that I would look, but definitely, well, I'm not going to say it's not one that I'm going to bet. I won't say that, because maybe it is. Bantamweight fight for the main event here, one I'm extremely excited about. Cory Sandhagen versus TJ Dillashaw, finally making it back to the cage here. Total set at 2.5. The over 2.5 is plus 100 even money. The under 2.5 is minus 130. And this is a spot where, honestly, I think we see an extended battle. TJ Dillashaw is a guy that before he fought Cody Garbrandt, he was not always a finisher. I mean, we know he's got fast hands. We know he's got heavy hands and tight boxing, but we also have seen him go 25 minutes with a guy like Dominic Cruz, utilizing his footwork and his speed and his elusiveness. That's been something he's been very, very successful at his entire career. I think when he fought Cody Garbrandt, it was almost like he knew the guy from the gym. He knew he had clipped him before in the gym. He knew he could get into a firefight with him and come out on top. So I feel like he took that strategy against an opponent who he knew that strategy would be effective against. Duane Ludwig and TJ Dillashaw have been on the cutting edge of MMA ever since the get-go. So these guys are going to have a good, solid, smart game plan in place for Cory Sandhagen. They're not just going to come in, drop the hands, brawl, and see who drops first. This is the championship title comeback for TJ Dillashaw. This is the prove everybody wrong comeback for TJ Dillashaw. I don't think this fight's going to be over early, even though both these guys are more than capable of finishing their opponent. I mean, Cory Sandhagen, his one loss by submission to Aljamain Sterling. TJ Dillashaw has a grappling advantage here. He's probably the better wrestler of the two. But can he submit Cory Sandhagen the way that someone like Aljamain Sterling did? I don't know that he can. TJ Dillashaw, yeah, he got knocked out by Henry Cejudo. But that was dropping to 125, and maybe one of the worst decisions TJ Dillashaw has ever made. Beyond that, has he really been finished? I think once before that. Like, he got out-decisioned by Dominic Cruz, and before that, the last finish was way back when John Dodson clipped him on the Ultimate Fighter finale in, like, 2011. Like, he's been nothing but insanely durable ever since then and his entire career. Coming off a 2-year layoff for a performance-enhancing drugs suspension, this is not a broken, old, frail TJ Dillashaw. This is a guy that got surgeries to repair all the things that were wrong with his body because he had downtime. This is a guy who's been, taking time to relax and recover, let his body heal, and then getting back to work in the gym intelligently in the right way, the way he was doing it when he became a champion. Like, he's going to be TJ Dillashaw healed. His body is going to be rejuvenated for this fight. So, Cory Sandhagen, fully capable of finishing. We've seen the type of striker this guy is, but he hasn't seen the kind of striker that TJ Dillashaw is. And I think that if TJ Dillashaw comes out with the right game plan, mixes in some of that grappling and the wrestling, I think this fight gets extended. I think we see the deeper rounds. So at the total of 2.5, I think that plus 100 even money for the over 2.5, that's calling my name. Because I don't expect TJ Dillashaw to body Cory Sandhagen to the floor and pound him into oblivion. Could it happen? Sure. Do I think it's going to happen and happen fast? No. I think that TJ Dillashaw is going to have to wear Cory Sandhagen out, drag him into the deep waters, and then maybe catch him with something late in the fight when TJ's at home, when TJ's used to running in those championship rounds. Cory Sandhagen, could he catch TJ Dillashaw early? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely could. I mean, that's his game, right? Like, most of his finishes come in the first round. But if he doesn't, what happens then? Does he curl up into a ball? Nah, this is a guy that lets the finishes come to him. He's not going to chase TJ Dillashaw. He's not going to overextend looking for that finish early. So if it doesn't naturally materialize the way his last couple have, then I think he probably slows down. He probably tries to shift gears, and both these guys settle in for what's going to be a longer technical fight. So that 2.5, I definitely like. The alternate of the 3.5 over is plus 150, and I actually don't hate that either. Now, once we start getting to the 4.5 and the fight goes to decision, it's a little bit sketchier, but I think this fight is headed to the judges' scorecards. I honestly think we're going to get a masterpiece, and unless TJ Dillashaw gets a finish late, then I think it's hitting the judges' scorecards. I can absolutely see TJ Dillashaw winning this thing 4-1 rounds using his wrestling or something like that after Cory Sandhagen has a good early first or second round. That's the total takedown, folks. Smash the like button for me. Make sure you hit me up. Follow me on Twitter. We are so close to 10,000 followers at DieHardMMA Pod on Twitter. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio if you haven't done so already. Good luck. We'll see you Friday for the undefeated post-weigh-in show. And I hope you cash all your tickets this week. Have a good one. We'll see you.